I'm expecting to be here. So it is 7:01 p.m. I'm going to call to order the special legislative meeting. All members of the council, you have an agenda before you. Are any changes required to the agenda?
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Councilman.
Being that this is a legislative session, is there a stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence for reflection?
We don't always have those at special legislative meetings, but if you would like, we could put one after the approval of the agenda. Would you like to do that?
Well, we normally do that before, sir, and given the extenuating circumstances internationally, I think it might be in order.
Well, I have already placed the agenda on the table for discussion, so I will put a Pledge of Allegiance and
But you
moment of
have not
silence.
had a motion to approve, so.
That is correct, but the discussion has started. I will be happy to add that immediately after the approval of the agenda, Mr. Councilman.
I think we should do it before, sir.
Thank you for your input, sir. I have one change to the agenda, which is to add an item to discuss a bill in front of the State House. We will hold on for just a moment. It is H Bill 1057. And we may want to take a position on it. So if we could add that as item 3, I would be appreciative. Any other changes? Hearing none. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Is there a discussion of the agenda? I will take a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Sadiq. Councilmember Sadiq has said that his computer is behaving strangely and will reboot. Can you hear me, Councilmember Sadiq? Can you give me a thumbs up for a yes vote? We'll skip over Councilmember Sadiq. Councilmember Mejia contacted me and has had a death in her family, and I do not expect her to be here this evening. Councilmember Mayers.
Aye.
Councilmember Sadiq is connecting to audio.
So my town issued computer is not behaving well.
I'm sorry to hear that. We are voting on the agenda as amended to add a discussion of House Bill 1057 that's in the State House. Do you approve the agenda as amended?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes, and I abstain. Motion passes 501. I should have brought it up during the discussion, but are there any members who have conflicts of interest for any items on the agenda this evening? Hearing none, I will move on to the suggested addition to the agenda of the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I will stand. Please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with indivisible
with liberty
liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence or a silent prayer as your conscience finds appropriate. Thank you. Please be seated. Before we move on to the agenda items, are there any public comments? Hearing none and seeing no hands. Oh, Laura, Ms. Katz. Yes, Ms. Katz. Please speak.
Actually, I'm not sure that this is the right place in the meeting. I just have an announcement. Is this, should I wait?
This
Session?
is a fine place.
Okay, I just wanted to let you all know, inform you that the Sustainability Committee is going to begin collecting feedback on the town's composting pilot program. And that there are over 30 participants or so that are participating currently in the program. And the pilot is, we're planning to run that until October of this year. And I wanted to check in with Councilmember Lingua, who's had involvement with the Sustainability Committee. We sent you an email last Thursday, I believe, and was just about the feedback tool that we're using and wanted to get your response to that email. And then also to Director Chelton, who we also emailed just today to check in with him regarding that feedback tool as well. Are there any questions about this? We're hoping to send out the feedback tool the beginning of this month, this week, really, actually, is what we're looking for. Councilmember Lingua, I just wanted to check in with you that you received the email that we sent last Thursday.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I've given it one look over. I'd like to give it a second look over before giving an answer in full. And
Okay.
if that's okay. So give me another day and you should be able to have that.
Fantastic. I appreciate that. Appreciate all the people that have put work into this up to this point, for sure. All right. And
Thank you.
Okay, just checking in with Director Chelton. Did you get that email? It just came to you this evening, so it's not been with you long at all.
I did. I'll take a look at that. Thank you, Laura.
All right, thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Katz. Any additional public comments? Okay, let's move on to legislative action items. Legislative action item number 1 is a motion to adopt Charter Amendment Resolution 2022-CR-01 regarding elections as amended. May I please have a motion?
Mr.
So
Mayor,
moved.
motion to adopt Charter Amendment Resolution 2022-CR-01.
Seconded.
Councilmember
Foe is reserving that second with his fingers.
No, I was
Sean,
gonna say it, but he was coming in with a much better. I was gonna say so moved, and he was actually going with the actual motion. So, it
Okay,
was
very
gonna be
good.
a better motion coming from Councilman Lingua.
Motion from Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Foe. Is there discussion of this motion?
Mr. Mayor, just to lead off, just a quick comment. My thanks to staff for the effort that they put in on this charter amendment.
Agreed. Any additional council comments? Ms. Katz, you still have your hand up. Is that to comment on this, or is it left up from the public comment section? Okay, went back down. So I will say I reviewed the resolution, and all of my concerns, minor concerns that I expressed previously, have been addressed. I'm very pleased with the final product, and so I echo Councilmember Lingua's thanks to the staff for their hard work on putting this together. If there are no additional comments, I will call a vote. So let's do a roll call. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Sadiq.
Aye.
Councilmember Mayers.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 501. The next item on the agenda is a motion to adopt ordinance 2022 OR-01. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Oh, she got it.
So the motion was by Smith. Who got the second? Councilmember Mayers?
I believe so.
Okay. Would you care to provide a brief discussion, Councilmember Foe?
Smith.
Smith, thank you.
I don't have anything for a discussion. I think this is great. I'm glad we are further professionalizing our election process that's been run very efficiently in the past without this, but I like that we are taking the steps to formalize the bounds of our democracy here in our town.
Thank you very much. Is there any additional council discussion on the on ordinance 2022-OR-01? Any public comments?
Sounds like you have a lot of comments in the background, Mr. Mayor.
There's one comment which I'll address after we vote. So I'll take this to a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Sadiq.
Aye.
Councilmember Mayers.
Aye.
Thank you, and I abstain. The motion passes 501. This brings us to item 3, the new item on the agenda. Again, I hope you will bear with me as I get the legislation up on the screen. So this is House Bill 1057, cross-filed as PG 406-22, Prince George's County Recreation Authority authorization. And the bill establishes a work group to make legal policy and fiscal recommendations on how to effectuate a transfer of existing recreational programs and personnel from the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission to a new county recreation authority. It also authorizes the governing body of Prince George's County to create such an authority after the work group delivers its recommendations. So fundamentally, this would transfer recreation activities, all recreation activities from MNC PPC to county government. And this was filed late, as I understand it. I'm not positive of that, but I believe it was filed late, probably after our council meeting, just before our council meeting, last council meeting. And so the question is, does the council wish to take a position on this bill? That we can, because the filing deadline for the next hearing is this Friday at 3 p.m. So we will not have a chance to comment on this for the March 8th hearing if we do not comment today. That's why I brought it before you and not preferred announcement steps. So do any council members have thoughts on this this transfer, possible transfer? I think Councilmember Foe's hand went up first. Mr. Councilmember Foe.
Yes, I can't speak individually to any knowledge about the programming of MNC PPC, but a constituent of mine, Miss Sarah Wayland, reached out to me and expressed severe concern about the transfer of this power to the county council. And she, having much more knowledge of programming offered, says that MNC PPC is doing an incredible job. And I look at the current county council as situated after this redistricting fiasco, and I really don't trust them with any increased powers. So I am steadfastly against this transfer of power to the county council in managing our park system. So that's where I lie.
Okay, Councilmember Smith.
Mr. Mayor, do we have any further information on this? This is the first I'm hearing about it, and I hear Councilmember Foe's concerns and think that's something to think about. I also think there could be some benefits to having these programs under our own county government and not having to worry with MNC PPC and Montgomery County and whatnot. I'm inclined towards the status quo on this, at least keeping this stuff under MNC PPC rather than the county. But do we have, is there any other information about this that we've received?
I'm forwarding to you at this moment a letter. I'm sorry about the late.
Oh no, I know it's not your choice, Mr. Mayor.
Right. I mean, it's this was not on my radar, so I'm just moving it as fast as I can. Okay, I have just forwarded a message that I received. It is a message from someone who takes a very definite position on this. There's one sort of intermediate option, and one of the things that I have always heard in the past is that when you oppose a piece of legislation, then you are no longer in the discussion. And so an intermediate position that the town could take that would still keep us in the discussion would be opposing the statement that the creation of the or the implementation of this separation be included in the bill. So saying to create, so the authorization of the governing body to create such an authority after the work group delivers its recommendations, that we oppose that, but we approve of a work group to make the recommendations. So that's an intermediate position that we could take that would still keep us in the conversation. So I believe that's not the recommendation of the email that I just sent you, but it's just a thought.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any additional council questions or comments, or for that matter, public questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, Councilman Lingua.
I think this is something where we definitely want to be a contributing stakeholder on this entire process. So my recommendation would be submitting a letter advocating what you had brought up in terms of the appointment of a study group on this.
Okay. Would someone, I'm hearing sort of general agreement for that from the few people who have spoken, or at least possible agreement for that. If you can give me just a moment, I could, does someone want to make a motion, or does someone like to, or would like me to try to craft a motion?
I like the second suggestion better, Mr. Mayor.
Well, if you want to give a hand on the verbiage, please don't let us stop you.
Okay, so my suggestion is a motion to authorize the town manager and mayor to draft and deliver a letter and/or testimony approving of the suggestion of the parts of HB 1. What's the bill number again? 1057. 1057 to create a work group, but opposing the authority to implement the recommendation, to immediately implement the recommendation of the work group. Okay, let me read that all at once. And if I can have the
I have it too, Mr. Mayor, if you want me to read it.
that would be great. And I'm going to stand up, but of course I can still hear you to go and address the comments from the non-human in my room. I'll be right back.
Am I motioning here, Mr. Mayor?
If you would like to, that'd be great.
All right, I would like to motion to authorize the town manager and mayor to draft and deliver a letter and or testimony approving the suggestion of the Parks HB 1057 to create a work group, but opposing the authority to immediately implement the recommendation of the work group.
Thank you, Councilmember Foe. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Foe, seconded by Councilmember Lingua. Is there further discussion? Town Manager Lustician, is this motion in compliance with our previously agreed upon policies on commenting on legislation?
It is, sir.
Thank you. Any additional public comments? Okay, I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Siddiq.
Aye.
Councilmember Mayers.
Aye.
Thank you. And I abstain. The motion passes 5-0-1. Are there any additional items? I guess there's nothing under legislative action items. Are there any items under new business? Are there any items under unfinished business? May I please have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Smith, seconded by Councilmember Lingua. There's no discussion of the motion to adjourn. Move immediately to a roll call vote. Except, okay, there we go. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Siddiq.
Aye.
Councilmember Mayers.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 5-0-1. We are adjourned at 7:24 p.m. And with that, I will call us to order for the work session at 7:24. Work session, as you all know, is a much less formal event. We are here to discuss, to decide what's going to be on the agenda for the next week and to learn new things. So are any amendments required to the agenda? I will ask informally. Hearing none, are there any conflicts of interest for agenda items? Okay, then let's go ahead and dive into the presentations. Presentation number 1 is review of residential trash collection program by Heidi Lewis. Director Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, everyone. Jessica, can I have permission to, okay, you're gonna, Okay, just share my screen. Okay, does everyone see a slide entitled Residential Trash Collection Program?
Indeed.
Okay, thank you. Good evening again. This is a presentation on the town's residential trash collection program during the first 7 months of the contract with Jada Trucking Incorporated, the town's new vendor for providing this service. Mr. Jesse Tart is here. He's the president. With him is his office manager, I believe, Ms. Tricia Brown. Let's see. Are your cameras on? There they are. Hopefully everybody can see them. We'll hear from them a little later on in the presentation about their experiences during their first 7 months with the town. I'm going to start with a brief, really high-level review of the activities over the last 7 months. I'll remind you that the town signed a contract with Jada Trucking back in April 2021. That contract went into effect August 23rd, 2021, when collections began. That was a Monday. From August 19th, I believe, to the 21st, the company distributed 1,299 trash containers to eligible households in town. The containers actually included an insert provided by staff of the magnet that you see on the first slide that was designed by a staff person in the Office of Administrative Services. The contractual services with Jada Trucking includes twice a week trash collection and once a week yard waste and bulk trash collection. There's on-premises collections for residents, or seniors or handicapped or otherwise have difficulty delivering their can curbside. There is the provision of trash containers to each eligible household and emergency collection call-in service that was added to the contract, I think for the first time in the town's history, where because of a weather-related or other event where a lot of debris was generated, whether bulk trash or yard waste, the contractor will be called in to assist with a situation that would require a concentrated collection effort. Customer service is actually provided by both the town and the contractor. The town has an online report a trash concern application for residents to report their trash. There's a report a concern and then there's a report a trash concern. And the latter is available for residents who have an issue they want to communicate directly with the contractor. Residents can also call the Office of Administrative Services, and that report will be entered into the online system. We continue to use both the contractor and the staff notification tags to inform residents as to why a collection was not picked up or why a set out was not picked up. Jada has a help desk call center, and I think that's primarily Ms. Brown. You think there's an office full of people in terms of her level of responsiveness. And both the town and Jada provide instructions to residents about proper set out for trash, yard waste, and bulk trash, how to report a missed collection, and when service is suspended, such as on non-collection holidays. We require several reports and notifications to the town. It's in the contract. I won't go through each of these. Probably most notable though are the weekly bulk trash pickup list, a summary report from the town's own online reporting system of missed pickups and when trash containers are requested. We'd like to have that information collected regularly. And we're going to talk just very briefly about collection activity in several areas, resident participation in bulk trash, the tonnage of household and bulk trash disposal and yard waste disposal, and a summary of residents' reported concerns through the online system. So bulk trash, in 26 weeks, the contractor collected bulky trash from 585 households. That's an average of 23 households per week. The range was a low 11 households participating in a week in January, up to 41 households in a week in September. I think that's the largest number I've seen in during my time with the town. Not sure what accounts for that. In terms of tonnage, obviously it varies across the 7 months, and generally with the in August and February, I'll point out those were partial months. This 9179, for example, does not include disposal of bulk trash and household trash for the last week in February. This is just a graphic of just the level of activity over the last seven months. Likewise with yard waste tonnage.
Director Lewis, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm still seeing just the overview graphic. Is there a...
Oh, okay, I think I have two screens open. Okay.
Okay.
No one thanked you, Mayor. No one said anything. And maybe that explains the look on Mr. Tart's face. All right, sorry about that. I will talk through them, but just show you the graphics of the information I've been presenting. Again, we have 6 distinct service areas provided by the contractor. We have customer service, both provided by the town and contractor in the service areas. We require certain reports and notification from the contractor. And on the notification side, the regular meeting schedule, a report of concern, required notification. Under required notification, it's really the suspension of service, damage to property, and pickup of miscollection that we want them to notify us of. Otherwise, we require these written reports. Again, I'm going to talk about the collection activity in these 4 areas. I mentioned bulk trash collection, again, from 585 households in 26 weeks, an average of 23 participating households per week, and a low of 11 households requesting bulk trash pickup in 1 week in January, to a high of 41 households in a week in September. Here's a look at the monthly trash bulk disposal tonnage. And for yard waste, I combined them to see if they trended similarly, and they seem to. Time of year, and maybe during the winter months, interestingly enough, there's an increase in waste disposal and collection and disposal tonnage. Regarding resident report of trash concern, again, this information is from the town's online reporting system. These numbers do not include any calls that went directly to the contractor. Some residents are opting to do that. Some residents will call into Town Hall and speak with staff in the Office of Administrative Services. Those numbers are reflected here. And over the 7 months, there were a total of 68. 41% of them were missed trash collection, 13 missed yard waste collection, and 24 requesting a new container, either as a new unit, not new resident, but a new housing unit. So this number may need to be verified, and replacement containers. And there were 15 others. If you subtract out the requests for containers, there's a total of 15 reported concerns dealing with a missed collection of either trash or yard waste, and then other issues which are summarized here. No trash containers, complaints about recycling. Some residents are not aware that the town does not provide recycling service. So we get those reports when they call in directly, or maybe even in response to completing the online reporting. we will convey that to the county or respond to the resident asking them to call County 311. A comment about bamboo not being picked up. Information requests will also come through the reported trash concern. Missing yard waste and trash, not sure why that was recorded in the system as other. And then trash left on the street. And there was one that seems to be missing, the mixing of trash and garbage. We heard several of those complaints, maybe within the first several months of the contract. We have not received those types of complaints since that time. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Mr. Jesse Tart and Ms. Brown. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Since we started this, basically, we've not had too many issues at all. Learning the community was a challenge for a minute, but after you get 30 or 60 days under your belt and you're doing it continuously, the same thing week after week, comes pretty natural now. Your residents are great. We talk to a lot of the residents. They know some of my guys by name. They leave water out for them when it's hot and things of that nature, which is always helpful when you can send the same crews. Some of the struggles is, of course, COVID. I like to leave in place the same employees, the same truck, so on and so forth, so they know the route. The residents get to know them as well. Doesn't always happen with COVID because I've run short from time to time, but we've always been able to get it done. Other than that, that's pretty much it. Everything is running pretty smooth. I haven't had any issues, and I'm open to any questions from any of you.
Thank you, Mr. Tart. Are there questions from the council? Councilmember Sadiq.
Yeah, I wanted to say that I was extremely impressed last week during recycling clean collection. I was happening to walk the dog that time. And as you know, we don't put the recycling in bags, we put it in the cans, and some paper escaped from the trash, and your people were very diligent in tracking down that paper and putting it back in and taking it off the street. It actually was almost comical how much they were working to get that cleaned up. I was very happy to see that. And then secondly, in the town calendar, it said that Department of Public Works will be closed on President's Day, the 21st, but that was actually a trash collection day. And I don't know if when that happens, can we put that in the calendar that trash will still be collected?
It's actually on the website. And for some holidays where we start to get questions ahead of the holiday, residents are not clear, the Office of Administrative Services will post an additional note clarifying that collection will or will not occur on that particular holiday. I don't know, Jessica, you can back me up on that, whether or not we post it on every occasion where trash will not be collected.
I think it's typically when there's some level of confusion, we gauge it based on some of the calls that are coming in or the emails that we're getting, and then we make that very clear. But Councilman, thank you for the feedback, and we'd be more than happy to make sure we do that each and every time.
And I'm also on the bulk pickup for Thursday, so we hope that goes well.
Oops, I missed your house. Sorry about that. Okay.
Councilman.
Not a problem. We always do our very best. Okay. And to be honest, from time to time, you do miss things. It's not whether you miss it, it's whether how you respond coming back to get it, because it does happen. You had touched on the windy days. We have had some windy days lately, and that makes trash collection very, very rough because the residents blame you for their can blowing down the street or their trash in the yard because it blew out of the can, or so on and so forth. So luckily we got through those pretty well without too many, issues. So.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith. Lost your unmute button, didn't you?
Yeah, yes, I did. Lost the cursor actually. See the mute button. It's the two screens and the thank you for that. Mr. Tart. I want to similarly compliment the professionalism of your workers. I'm one of those folks that likes to wave and leave water out and when it's hot and whatnot. So as other folks on the council and with the staff know, the workers that provide our services are very close to my heart, and an issue that I try to make sure we're always doing right by them. And as such, could you tell me if you know offhand, or I'll take some information later, how your pay and benefits for your workers, how competitive is that with municipalities that do this service in-house?
Well, I guess to sum it up like this, I'm above industry standard. I pay
above industry standard. Okay.
Yes, I'm above industry standard.
And I'm assuming your workers would have, just based on number of hours of work, they have healthcare and 401k, that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm not sure if you've had this issues come up, but if your workers were to file a petition to unionize, would you adopt a position of neutrality on that?
Actually, I don't know. I would have to find out at the time, but I don't think I'm big enough. My company's big enough to have those concerns yet.
Well, every company's big enough to have those concerns. I would hope that you would adopt a neutral stance on that, so that your employees have that opportunity for democracy in the workplace. But my interactions with your employees have been great. And the great thing about democracy in the workplace is they get to choose whether to exercise it or not. So I hope if that issue ever does come up that you would adopt neutrality. But it sounds like everyone's doing great over there. So thanks for your service to our town.
Okay, I have a saying that I say, basically I have 28 employees. So I have 28 families to take care of.
Sure.
That's how I feel about it. So.
Outstanding. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Additional council comments? Any public comments? Ms. Katz.
Thank you, Mayor. Hi, Mr. Tart. I'm glad you're here this evening. I just have a couple questions. My first question was, based on your experience in this service industry, how would you characterize our town's tonnage for trash and yard waste? Do you have a feel for, based on the size of our town, how does it compare to other towns you've done?
Okay. I started your town during COVID. So, and of course, all the numbers have been extremely high since COVID, since homes have become daycare centers, offices, and everything else. So the numbers are extremely high. So to be fair, I couldn't give a appropriate comparison to after we get through this pandemic. And then that'd be a question that I could give you an accurate answer to.
Appreciate that. Okay. That's interesting. That's something I'm interested in. And the other thing I was curious about, I should know the answer to, but I don't. Does it cost more to bring trash to the landfill than it does yard waste?
Oh, absolutely. Trash costs $70 a ton to dump. Yard waste costs $15 a ton to dump.
Wow.
So it's always in my best interest not to have that mixed.
That's what I wanted to hear. So is there anything else the residents of this town can do to make collecting yard waste more effective for your team?
No, I mean, they're doing their part. They're doing their part. Like I said, we had a few issues, but I was able to, we were able to work through it and get my crews through it. And I stressed them, like I said, it affects my bottom line. And when it affects my bottom line, it's certainly a huge concern to me and something that I will stay on top of.
Okay, well, it may keep you up at night, but it's going to help me sleep. So I appreciate you sharing. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I can make a couple of comments. Do you see the trash bulk disposal tonnage on the screen? I thought I should check it this time.
Yes, I see it.
Okay, so these are baselines. I hesitated to compare these monthly totals to totals over the last couple of years because of COVID. I think things have leveled out a little bit, but during COVID, the tonnage information for trash and bulk trash together were extremely high. So these are baselines that we'll compare future totals to as over the next couple of years. In the next update, we'll have the full 12 months. And then as we go along, maybe quarterly, we'll come back and sort of share those numbers so we can see which way things are trending, likewise with yard waste. And I failed to mention that the reported concerns, the time frame was over the 7 months from last August, or maybe the first ones came in September through February. And Mr. Sadiq, I appreciate hearing the comments about recycling collection, but again, that service is provided by the county's contractor, not the town's.
Thank you, Director Lewis. Any additional council or public comments or questions? I always save my, Ms. Katz, yes.
Sorry, I just had one other thing I was curious about. You had said that some people have contacted JADA directly regarding feedback and whatever issues they might have. So I was curious, contact information, where is that? It's not something the town is putting on the website, is it? It's more about the report going through the town. Is that the preferred method of? I'm seeing head nods.
So ideally, we would get all of those complaints so we can track the numbers as well as the company's response. But I expect that some residents are simply Googling the company and getting the number that way.
So that indicates to me that maybe, there's maybe a need, although I know y'all do outreach, but maybe that's one little point that needs a little bit more repetition for the residents to make that more consistent. Would you agree with that? Am I thinking about that the
So
right way?
I guess another option too is to have the contractor enter that information into the town system.
Sure. And of course, that's another layer, right, of work for them as well and all that. But
Right.
that's a way the residents could help, is if we know that we need to do the report a trash concern or call the town, right?
Right. That's preferred for tracking purposes.
Okay.
But at the same time, the relationship that those residents have established with the hall, I think, is a positive one. And that's probably why some residents are continuing to do that. It may always.
Thank you. Councilmember Lingua, you have another question or comment?
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor, regarding about contacting. Prior to the starting of the service, the town very diligently went around, or actually, I believe this might have come with the, actually, our memory serves me right, a small bag was with the brand new cans, and in there was a magnet. And on that magnet is the website address for JADA Trucking.
And phone
What
number.
was the phone number?
I
Right
see
there.
that now.
I mean, my phone number is everywhere. It's on the cans, it's on my truck. It's everywhere. That's part of business for me. So
And-
to be honest with you, it's easier for the resident to look at the big number plastered on my truck going down the street and call that.
And I should clarify, the reason we have it here is because residents do call and have to call JADA to set up bulk trash pickup.
Yes, yes.
But
yes,
otherwise,
that-
we on the magnet, we also have reported concern. And
Yes,
obviously, we're not stressing one or the other on the magnet, but yeah, that's probably where they get that number from when they
yes.
want to schedule bulk trash.
Yes, but as folks may do, could very well when they're looking at this, because when you are looking at it in its horizontal position, reading the phone number there in the lower left corner, because psychologically, when people look at something, they start in that lower left corner and move into an image. They may see that first as opposed to trying to read vertically going up the report of concern part. Not to say they won't, but they may not catch it right away. So the fact that you could have folks calling over to Jada Trucking and reporting something would not surprise me.
And,
Can I say something real quick? 99% of the calls that we get from residents are positive calls, thanking us for our service, telling us how nice our crews are. Trisha has a couple people that just call just to talk to her, just to say, hi, how are you? How are you? And I'm absolutely serious. She engages them. Sometimes they may talk 15 or 20 minutes. And I say, hey, Trish, who was that? Oh, that was somebody from Riverdale Park that called that I usually talk to once a week or twice a week, something like that. So I understand your concerns, but 99% of the calls are very positive calls, thanking us for our service or thanking, my guys, as a team. So maybe that'll ease your concern some about them calling.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could just add
Please.
one additional thing. So as Ivy had on her slide, there were 68 complaints that came in either to Town Hall by phone or through the computer. This is over 5 months. And so if you figure about 1,300 residential properties, twice a week, 4 weeks a month, 5 months, that's over 51,000 points of contact. And we have, even if we tripled that number, it's not even going to be close to a percentage point. And so I would say that the current vendor is delivering quality service through the removal of residential trash. So I think that the numbers bear that out.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Any additional council questions, public comments or questions, staff? So I tend to save my comments and questions right for the very end. So I'll say, first of all, that I've gotten very positive feedback from residents about Jetta. And so thank you very much for delivering that and for having the residents happy in general with it. My second item is a question, and it has to do with, I always think about the tonnage, and I particularly think about the tonnage when I see somebody who has a couch out for bulk trash pickup and it's raining. And I just think about the fact that we're paying for that water to get dropped at the dump, and whether there's anything that we could do to stop that from happening. And so if you have any suggestions about that, I'd love to hear them.
I think that's the first time I've ever heard this question. Actually, there's not a lot that we can do about it. I mean, trash cans, some people leave their tops open and they'll get halfway full of water, and my guys will dump the water out of the can. But as far as a couch or bulky or something, any kind of bulk, there's not a lot we can do with it, to be honest with you. So that's, yeah. As far as like I say, a trash can, something like that, if they're full of water, my guys are going to turn them over and dump the water because you can't pick them up.
Sure.
Water gets heavy real quick. So
right, and that's why I think about those couches. I've just dealt with wet things that get wet, particularly after a flood or something like that, and woo, do they weigh a lot. Things that weigh nothing, pick up a lot of weight from water.
Yeah.
So my final comment will be to thank you about a particular thing that happened, I think within the last 6 weeks, maybe it was a little bit more than that, when we had a snow event, and the snow was predicted to fall starting about the time that you were going to start collection. And you proactively contacted town and said, we're worried about collection, we're worried about not being able to complete it. We'd like to start early so that we can be sure to get there before the snow does and get the trash picked up. And I just really want to thank you for thinking about that and for reaching out, because that just shows your real commitment for doing a good job. And I really appreciate it.
okay, thank you.
And the residents appreciate it.
Okay, My concern there was we had several snows back to back. So I had missed maybe 2 or 3 collections, and they were saying that snow was going to start at 8 o'clock. So what I asked could I do is start at 4, and I send 2 trucks in there. I was going to send 5 or 6 trucks in there and knock it out in an hour and a half or 2 hours before anything started, just because I know that it was backed up from the previous weeks of snow that we had. So thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, I think we're done talking to you. Thank you very much again for coming, and thank you for doing the fantastic job for our residents. It's very important for us. Trash pickup and police are sort of the 2 things that are third rails of municipal government, and so we appreciate that you're doing a great job. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, let's move on to the next presentation, micromobility in Riverdale Park from VioRide.
Ryan, if you can give an intro.
Yes, so I believe, so Alex Keating here is from VioRide. VioRide is a micro transportation company currently working with University of Maryland, University Park, and the City of College Park. You may have seen their scooters. I'm not sure exactly what the word is for that color, but they're black and a bluish green.
Teal. You go with
okay.
teal.
Right, teal. You may have seen their scooters and riding around in Route 1 and in that area. Alex is here tonight to be able to answer some questions about VioRide, should anybody have some.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan, and thank you to the mayor, city town manager, and all the council members. It's been a long time since we've had a check-in. Ryan is always sort of keeping on top of the pulse, but obviously it's been a while, so I'm glad to be here just to give you a quick update. I won't be doing a bigger presentation tonight. I'll get into maybe why, and also that we would like to offer, I think, something more in depth on an upcoming meeting shortly. But just very quickly, by way of some background, I don't know that I've had a chance to speak with everyone on this evening. I'm Alex Keating. I'm the Director of Public Policy and Partnerships with VIO. I'm personally based in New York, but I oversee all our markets from that perspective. I don't run the operations, but I work closely with all the partner cities as the central point of contact. My team would be the ones that are meeting with folks and making sure that everything is going as well as possible. We also do the data reporting and things like that. VIO, as Ryan mentioned, is a micromobility provider. We've been around since 2017. So in this space, we're older, middle-aged for sure. This particularly dockless micromobility, meaning a bike or scooter that you use and return to either a geo-fenced virtual zone or in a dockless manner where you can end your trip anywhere in the service area is pretty much kicked off in 2016, 2017 as a service in general. So we've been doing it for a while, currently serving around 35 cities across the country, from large to small. We're in some of the biggest markets like New York City, Santa Monica, San Diego, LA, things like that. And in smaller markets, college towns have been a big part of VIO's history. It was where we were founded, and the initial service we ran was really meant to be a turnkey offer for universities and the surrounding towns and cities as a first mile, last mile transportation option. We've been operating with the city, town, and university in College Park for around 2 years now. That was initially a pilot program that COVID extended and sort of delayed. So the major update for all of you, which I've provided to Ryan in bits and pieces, is that we are just right now finalizing an updated, more permanent contract to provide service to those the 3 parties. And one of the reasons I'd like to get back on the docket for a near future meeting would be to present more on the exact contract that we will have in place with the parties and provide to let you all kind of get through that, ask the questions of the particulars of it, so that we could have, I think, a productive conversation about what it looks like for VO to more formally expand service area, enter into an agreement with Riverdale Park if there's interest in having that service, where we know there are natural origin destination desires. We know that people want to utilize the service to cross those boundaries for sure. So we'd be in a place, I think, quite soon to have that as an in-depth conversation about what it looks like. I will say that what we know for sure is that we would be operating more of a sort of hybrid. It's not quite we wouldn't be installing docks where, like, you imagine traditional bike share where you push the bike into the rack or lock it. We're sort of pivoting in the surrounding market to what we kind of call forced parking, or we use geofenced hubs that can sometimes have paint or tape. In those other markets, we will have paint or tape on the ground indicating it's scooter parking or bike parking. And we geofence them in the back end, and we'll be making it so that riders need to end their trips at designated spots. That tends to reduce slightly, natural flows of where people would ride. They'd want to go right to their door. Most folks like a door-to-door trip, but it also adds a lot of organization to the system, whereby we're more likely to be able to meet our partners' interests in keeping vehicles in an orderly manner and making sure they're not in places where there's a perceived sense that they're sitting or being unused. So that's one direction we're heading, and would be something that we would be certainly on the menu if and when we can engage in a conversation about expansion. I'm very happy to answer questions, but as I mentioned, I think it's going to be really a far more valuable conversation in a couple weeks, when we have a final sense of how things are going to be working in the legacy market right across the road from you all. So I'll leave it there and then open up to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Keating. There are some council questions. I'll recognize Councilmember Siddiq first.
Thank you. I enjoy having used VO before, but I think we've got a fairly decent issue that the town would need to deal with first, namely that there's not a lot or any scooter parking and not too many bike racks in our town. And if you ride from College Park, will you then be bound by the requirement to park it next to a bike rack, which we really don't have abundance to? If, for example, a college student wants to come down and try 250 barbecue, I don't know where the nearest bike rack is. And most of us bike riders just find the nearest street sign and chain our bike to that.
Right.
And so how would you propose to deal with that?
So again, we are happy to, this is always a challenge. We like to work as closely as we can with the jurisdiction on what what the group wants to see, what you all want to see happen here. But there's also a really important tension to understand is that, like, dockless parking provides the highest level of ease of use for a rider. It also is what will often spur a complaint saying there's a scooter parked on my street and I don't know why it's here, and it's not at a bike rack, it's not at a thing. So we have to be realistic, and if a scooter is obstructing the right of way in a way that is a danger to public safety or is in the middle of the road, and if first of all, it can be moved. They're not, they weigh about 50 pounds. But second of all, if we get a call, we'll respond to that within 2 or 3 hours at the most. I mean, so it's almost always much shorter. It just depends on the level of questions and complaints coming in on a given day. However, that can often lead to challenges around folks who aren't so excited to see these services extend into their neighborhoods, and you just never know. So long story short, that would be a conversation we would have about how you envision this working in Riverdale Park, where it may be appropriate to have a less forced, more dockless approach, and where we might want to not, where we might want to be more reined in with saying you have to end your trip at a bike rack or a taped out or geofenced zone, which we can do, in small spaces. You don't have to take up the whole sidewalk or even an entire parking space. We can do it in leftover space and put some of those in. I think what the best solution would be, obviously, that if this is to happen, that we would engage in quite an extensive sort of planning process around where, if any, expansion of parking areas you'd like to see, and a timeline for getting those on the ground. Again, a light touch, not necessarily having to bolt things in or add anything big, but rather just a pavement tape or paint kind of approach could be used.
And a second one is a problem that I know is happening to some extent at University of Maryland, and that's the vandalism of your scooters. Is that a police action then, or who handles people taking them and throwing them in lakes and things?
Yeah, I mean, typically that's the kind of thing when we're aware of it, we were going to report that. We will go and retrieve a vehicle wherever possible. That doesn't have to be a responsibility of anyone else. If it's possible for our staff to get to it and retrieve it, we will. That's our responsibility when we're aware of that. And I think that it's not for us, it's not an endemic on a huge scale, particularly in this market, but it is again a challenge that needs to be addressed, and that's something that keeps our staff busy going around to deal with them.
So I'm also a University of Maryland student, and I can tell you a lot of students believe it's very common because they get thrown in places people can see them, and it looks like there's always a scooter in that river by the bridge there.
Yeah. Again, it's a tough situation, and there's not much else we can do but go after the vehicle when we see it, when we're told it's there. Because again, these are not necessarily riders; these are not people that are on file with us. These are anyone can pick a thing up and throw it. So, as the aside from working with the police and trying to go after the vehicle, it's about what we can do at this point.
And one last thing: how do you report that to VO? I don't see that on the app.
So I could walk you through that on the app. There would be, just like any report an issue. There isn't a specific thing, report a vehicle in a river, that you'll find on the app, but you'll find a report an issue in the app. I'm going to open up the app and I can just talk you through that. Also, the vehicles all have contact information on them as well, which you can call our customer service team. You can call them, but to do it in app, you would be, I don't think it's going to work for me to show my screen. Oh yeah, it's always ugly. So in the app, there's a little menu in the top left corner. Then there's a help section if you scroll down, and report an issue, send report. So I could also send an email to Ryan that kind of walks through those screens. But there is a send report option there. And there's also, of course, the customer service and other hotline info that can be called into.
Thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Keating, for coming here to present to us this evening. I got a couple questions on this agenda item from constituents. If I could just ask those real quick. First, your agreements with UMD College Park and University Park, do you have separate individual agreements with them, or is that one agreement that the different jurisdictions sign on to? And if Riverdale Park were to expand that, we'd sign on to that, or would we have an individual agreement with VO-RIDE?
Yeah, great question. So in this case, it is 3 individual agreements. Part of the reason it can take some time, but they are mirror image for the most part and reflecting each other in the language as well. So we work together as a group and everyone is seeing everything as we do it to establish those, but they are separate because even our rules and regulations have differed and do differ across those jurisdictions. So parking requirements have been different for the university as opposed to town and city, hours of operation even. So they are actually different, but we deal with it all as a group on one term. If this was to be, if Riverdale Park were to want to move forward, what we would be doing is taking the agreement for the town or the city, most likely looking at that real with a fine tooth comb with you and sort of filling in Riverdale Park where it says College Park, for example, in most places, customizing what is possible based on, again, the things that you would want to see as part of that. And then signing that as essentially a separate agreement, but it would reference the broader, we would just be calling that now the broader service area made up of now the 4 jurisdictions. And I'm sorry, the last thing I'll say is inside our app, that would act as one contiguous service area.
Got you. And secondly, I hear you that like you guys, when you get the notification that something's wrong, like a scooter in the river, and I want to thank Councilmember Sadiq for shouting out Ward 1 Institution 250 Barbecue, best barbecue in the DMV. So I hear you guys come and get that, but when say, and correct me if I'm wrong, if your customers are geo fenced off from doing this, if a scooter is left in a handicapped space or a crosswalk or something like that, damages property, etc. I'm just wondering, like, are there cases in which the town, like responding to that, if we get the notification before you do, that we would incur administrative costs for that? If you've run into that situation and how you've handled it, if so.
I might need a little bit more clarity on your question. Is that in regard to administrative costs as a result of a lawsuit or something like that, or administrative costs in the sense of dealing with a scooter that is in, like, physically relocating a vehicle that is somewhere it's not supposed to be?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm asking about lawsuits so much. Like, so what I'm thinking is somebody leaves it in a crosswalk or a handicap space or some way that violates the town's parking code, right?
Yeah.
Now, normally, like you said, that's a pretty simple thing. You pick the scooter up, you move it. There's not going to be, I'm guessing, if it gets to us before you, an administrative cost to that. But I'm wondering if you've ever encountered a situation where that's led to wider issues, safety issues, something where there is a cost incurred by the jurisdiction, rather than just picking up the scooter to move it. And if you haven't run into that situation,
Yeah.
I suppose that's good news.
Yeah. So the short answer is we haven't. We have plenty of operational setups with cities and towns whereby we have an SLA, we have an assumed, we have a required sort of response time, and if we're failing, then we can be on the hook for a monetary fine for not making it there in time. But generally speaking, we've not had any situation where it has escalated into any other kind of major cost for a city, besides taking a small amount of money from us.
Sure. Sounds good. And then what is the generally, or if there is a standard practice, the length of your contracts, and are there provisions in them that allow municipalities to cancel the contract for non-delivery of services? I just met you. I'm assuming you always deliver services, but municipal contracting is one of my soapboxes. So I got to ask that.
Sure. Yeah, our contracts vary in length. Our wheelhouse, like what we tend to be looking for as a company. I'm sure that many of you have heard of other companies in this space, like Bird or Lime or anything like that. What has differentiated us over time is that we've grown at what I would call a more responsible pace, but let's just call it a slower pace. We look to sort of walk before we can run. This is a very difficult business. We are a company that makes a profit, meaning we have to take in more than we spend. We're not a venture capital backed.
Yeah, I don't think any of your competitors can say that, actually, right?
No, none can. And one of the reasons we can say it is that we look for, there are always challenges. It is a difficult business. It's an emerging space. There's a lot that we need to sort of iron out as for everyone, cities, towns, the companies. But what we look for are longer term partnerships where we can make things work over time. So we tend to be in sort of, we do 1 year contracts here and there, but we do like to have a sort of 2 to 5 is our sweet spot with the parties across the road. It'll be a longer term, a 2 or 3 year contract, and then most likely, and then to your second point, of course, everyone's got lawyers in the room when these things happen, and there are absolutely outs. The other thing that distinguishes my company from some of the others is we've never sued a city. We've never received a cease and desist order, and we've never sued a city or town or university. It's not our business model. If you don't want us there, we don't want to be there. So we've never dumped scooters on streets without a permit in place. That's not our business model. So as a former city employee myself, I can tell you, we don't deal with stuff like that. If you want to invite us to leave, you're more than welcome to.
Awesome. I hope if we get to that point, that we don't have to invite you to leave. It's good to hear that you're focused on providing a service and not just demonstrating growth to shareholders at any cost. Just my last thing, I want to make sure that you are aware of a pretty egregious error on your website. In my home state of Alabama, you have the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa in Birmingham. That's an hour down the road, man, on I-20, 3.5 hours on game day. So I just want to point that out to you.
It's in Birmingham?
It says University of Alabama, Tuscaloosa coming soon in Birmingham. Like it's Alabama, Birmingham, and then it says that underneath it.
I'm looking at it.
I don't know if you're talking about UAB in Birmingham.
Oh, no. Well, no. So that's for you. That's something that they should be updating right now. But for your edification, we operate, it's not a very well organized list, I guess. We do operate Birmingham
and Tuscaloosa,
Alabama, and the University of Alabama. They are not one market.
Okay.
They're two distinct markets. We have a great market at University of Alabama. It is very separate from, and it should have its own.
I'm mostly pulling your leg. You don't have to.
Yeah, but we have them both. They are separate. They have two different crews, two different warehouses, two different everything. I go down there a fair amount.
Awesome. Outstanding. That'll conclude my questions. Roll Tide.
Thank you. You were just waiting for that 3.5 hours on game day. I know you've been working on that line for a little while. I got a town manager Lustician. You had a comment or question about this?
Yes, Mr. Keating, thank you for joining us again. And because you were here some time ago.
It's been a year, yeah.
I think it was pre-COVID. It may have been, I'm not sure, but it's been some time. I think Mr. Shelton's insistence that we have a conversation is a good thing. And I'm listening to the conversation with the council tonight with keen interest, as micromobility is something that the council has highlighted in a vision and commitment statement to transportation, that micromobility is an important thing. I do think that we need to have a follow-up discussion, though, because I believe that now would be a good time to discuss the locations that currently are in Riverdale Park for VIA Ride, because you currently operate in Riverdale Park, I believe, at 2 locations, one of University Research Court in Riverdale Park and one in Riverdale Park Station. So it may be an opportune time, if you're having discussions with University Park and the university and the city of College Park, now may be the best time to begin a discussion about operating Riverdale Park, so we can kind of bring your current operation into an agreement, a formalized agreement.
Sure, understood.
Great.
Any additional council questions or comments? Any public questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, please, Councilman.
Thank you. Yeah, I remember a number of years ago, I was seeing a number of articles about Vail Ride. Some ups, some downs. Contracts started, contracts amended, contracts canceled. Various places around the country. Another was, I think you had issues at JSU where there was service was suspended. Texas A&M, they brought you in and then they needed to amend their contract with you. I would appreciate if you could touch on some of those. But the real concern I have is, and this kind of gets back to about, geocache parking versus essentially non-geocache parking of the bikes and scooters. 'Cause I see what's happening around in College Park and other areas, and I see bikes and scooters strewn about in very inopportune places, and it really has a shabby look about it. And I hope that's something that can be avoided. But what I'm really concerned about with is the fact that you're running a commercial operation situated in a public right-of-way. And most other businesses in town, save for the local soft ice cream truck that goes around when she has a license to do so, I have to follow, very specific regulations about where and where they can't be in order to conduct business. So I hope in the discussions that you have in the future with Ryan and other members of staff, that you're able to come up with something so that, should we go with this service or get into an agreement, that the scooters, the bicycles are able to be stored in an orderly manner within the town at locations. I would prefer geocaching the scooters and bikes for folks, for them to be used. We have an agreement with Capital Bike Share. They have docking stations. That seems to be working well. So I was wondering if you could share with me your thoughts about how you see this moving forward and what you've learned over the past 2 years.
Sure. I'll start, I guess I'll start at the beginning of your question, which was a statement about other markets. We have ended contracts in a handful of markets that included a lot of honestly, our earliest bike share only markets, as the business in general pivoted away from just dockless pedal bikes. In markets that were very small and only had dockless pedal bikes, there were instances where we had to bring service to a halt. That was, done with notice to our partners and questions about what could be done to make a service work, like adding some electric vehicles to the mix, expanding the fleet, expanding the service area. But where it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And unfortunately, sometimes those markets need to be spun down, and it's in everyone's interest. Texas A&M, I think you might have mentioned. Texas A&M is our largest fleet. It's one of our longest operating and best relationships. We have over 2,500 vehicles in College Station. So that has not gone anywhere. It's only grown. And in general, it is a very, very popular program for us.
You had a modified agreement with Texas A&M, correct?
We modify agreements all the time as we modify fleets and service provisions and things like that to make sure it works in everyone's interest. We modify agreements when they come to the end or when they need modifying based on the needs of either party. So yes,
Okay.
I'm sure we've modified far more than just that agreement across
Sure.
across years and markets. We've been operating there for 4 or 5 years now. So
So that's something that we as a town could discuss with you about any possible contracts. Is about making modifications.
I'm not sure I follow. I'm sorry. Could you repeat that?
I mean, well, the modification of that, the one you had with Texas A&M, I understand you do that, but I understand that the one at Texas A&M came at their request.
Yeah, I can't. That was actually that would have been before my time when that was formally modified, but I believe. But we modify contracts with partners. That's our goal is to be able to serve partners over the long haul, and things change. So we are open to doing that as long as it's a fruitful relationship for both parties. That's why we've been successful at that university for so long.
Okay.
But to your later points, yeah, I think they relate directly back to, I think, what the conversation that started towards the beginning, which was what's the right parking solution and what's the right sort of operational solution for the jurisdiction, for the market. We have shifted the parking for UMD for the campus already to geofenced forced parking at the bike racks, at the many bike racks. It's a little bit of an abnormal setup for us, but because there's so many small geofenced parking locations within such proximity to each other, but that is in the effort of reducing what you mentioned about a look that doesn't meet a standard in terms of the placement of the vehicle. So that's live now. Something that we would have the conversation with you all about how that gets handled. Geofence parking does work, but it's about balancing the priorities and making sure that there's enough. Because I will say this, our goal is to serve the community and provide something that works for everybody. There's always going to be disagreements about what's the best form for this kind of thing, but our goal is to provide what works. The caveat there being, it needs to be a reliable functional service for the rider. So if there are 4 parking areas and that's it, then it'll never be a popular service that can really work. So you have to get the balance right. If you want to really rely heavily on forced parking, it needs to be similar to your experience of driving a car, where you assume there may be a spot to park near to where you're going. There's not always parking, but that generally speaking, curbs are meant for parking cars. So we need similar sort of levels of availability to make it a regular, reliable thing for folks. And that's the value of a more dockless or sort of hybrid geofenced micromobility service, as opposed to a traditional docked system where, the installation, the capital, all of that is always a constraint on expansion and on providing as convenient a service. Everything we do is, we don't charge anything for what we do. We can install the paint and maintain things as well on our own dime. But it's about getting as much in as you can if that's the direction you want to go. And those are all conversations we would have if there's a decision to move this forward. So we would cross those bridges.
Okay.
And hopefully not throw any scooters in.
Okay.
Any additional council questions, comments? Any public questions or comments? So I'm going to again weigh in at the end, commenting on Councilmember Sadiq's statement about bike racks in our historic town center. There are actually on the other side of the tracks from the awesome and delicious 250 Texas barbecue restaurant. There are 7 blue bike racks over there. So and the issue on the 250 Texas side is that there's just not a lot of open paved real estate that we could install them on. We've actually been looking for spots there, but it's a pretty short walk. After you've had a whole rack of ribs, then it feels like a long walk, but it's not too bad. You want to respond to that, Councilmember?
Yeah, and so the issue is we put advertisements out then and extended VO's range down to Riverdale Park. A student coming down is not going to know those bike racks are there. They're going to show up at 250. And if I ride my bike there, I just find a street sign and chain it to it. But with the VO ride, then you have to figure out where the hell is this place I'm supposed to park at? And we either need to have slightly different rules where we can park at other places or have some way to identify where you should be parking. And I think as a students coming down, which may be familiar with the area, that could be an issue.
Sure. So that actually leads very nicely into my next and final comment, which is that I actually, in my spare time, read the Strong Towns site, and they have various publications and webcasts and everything like that. And one of the things they suggest for finding ideal locations is to have a burn-in period at when you first start up the service, and see where the scooters end up, where the bikes end up. And you do that for a few weeks, sometimes a little bit longer than a few weeks. And then you go in with a box of chalk and you find a place that's near where they're ending up anyway. And you try chalking off different areas and you see if it works. And the ones that work, then you go in with the paint and you make it permanent. And so I think that we might want to do that, since I think we don't necessarily know where people are going to want to be going with this service. So just a thought.
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, we do minus the chalk. We do a similar process in many markets whereby it will start out as a fully dockless model where we're telling people to park in really the complicated issue here is telling them to park in what is commonly called the furniture zone, anywhere they see a hydrant, not next to a hydrant, but in a zone we see a bench, or you'd see a street tree or whatever that is, you just park there. Often there are streets that just don't have the space, and it can be very challenging to have folks do the right thing. They kind of want to, but they can't figure it out. But we do often have a sort of a beginning of dockless that we then back into based on origin destination, and we can start to do a virtual chalk where we start to do incentivized parking, like recommended, not forced, and then we can also move to forced with using geofences in the back end, so it doesn't have to be physically on the ground. It certainly helps to physically mark it with something as easy as chalk or tape, so people figure it out, because many people can't read a map on their phone and translate that very easily. It's a challenge, but point very well taken. All I'd say, and that's why we look for partners who understand the real opportunities and the challenges of these, is that you start with that process, and that's the time you're going to have the most public comment about the challenge. Why are these scooters here? What's going on here? And that's the point you need to be able to push through and get to better informed riders. I think a good news for you is that folks in the area have a fair amount of knowledge of or experience with this. It's not totally new, but it is always a challenge. So want to put that out there, but we use that process in many places.
Okay, fantastic. Any other comments? Councilmember Siddiq.
When are we going to have a more formal meeting at some point in time, or what's the plan?
Looks like town manager's gonna weigh in. Yes.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I think we will follow up with Mr. Keating and have a discussion. There seems to be general support from the council to further explore this. And if I'm reading that correctly, then we'll follow up with Mr. Keating to discuss an agreement, and then bring this back to the council shortly thereafter.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Keating, for coming and talking to us, and hope to see you again very soon to start working on an agreement.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the time. And I'll probably be in the area in the next month or so. So I'll let Ryan know when I'm down as well, if there's anything we can do to do a walkthrough or anything like that. And we'll continue the conversation. I really appreciate the time and the questions.
Fantastic. Thanks.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Okay, let's move on the presentations. We've been talkative this evening. So the next presentation is fiscal year 2023 budget presentation from Gentry Jones. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, council members of the public. Thank you, Ryan. Okay, so tonight's presentation covers fiscal year 2023 projections as well as estimated actuals for our revenue. So we have a column for the estimated actuals, which shows where we think the town will fall for revenue for the current fiscal year. And the next column is the FY 2023 projections, which shows where we think we will be for the next fiscal year budget. One note I'd like to make before I begin is that the projections for both the estimated actuals and the fiscal 2023 projections are conservative due to the uncertainty that we have with the geopolitical issues that we have, COVID-19 and so forth. So the numbers that we have here presented, they are subject to change as we get further along into the budget process, but this is where we believe we will land. So the first major category is local taxes, which includes real estate taxes, personal property tax, local income taxes, and operating tax. So for an estimated actual, we believe that we will outperform our budgeted amount by marginal amount of $5,421,000. And we have a projection for the next fiscal year of $5,591,000. For real estate taxes, we have received word from UNICAP that the TIF revenues are strong. So we do expect to have roughly $281,000 projected to flow back to the town. But again, we are moving forward conservatively because we are subject to some change. The next category that I'd like to discuss in local taxes is personal property. Currently, town has received $843,810, which is much higher than the budgeted amount of the $387,379. The reason for that is the purple line. When we initially made the current year budget, we did not anticipate receiving purple line revenue, but we did, and we have included that in the next year projections as well. So for an estimated actual, we have $845,000. And for next year, we expect to receive purple line revenue as well. So we have an estimate, a projected amount for the next fiscal year of $785,000. Next line item is local income tax. We have an estimated actual of $600,000 and a projected amount of $600,000 as well. Operating tax, estimated actual of $225,500. And then we have a projected amount of $225,000. And the last is the admissions and amusement tax. We have $2,000 for an estimated actual. We don't expect to receive any more. We've received 2012 thus far. And for the next fiscal year, we have a projected amount of $1,000. So if we look at the overall for local taxes, we have an estimated actual of $7,094,000, and we think that it will bump up to $7,202,589 in the next fiscal year. The next category that we have is licenses and permits. So we've already exceeded the budgeted amount for $211,954,000. We have an estimated actual of $215,000 for the current fiscal year. And remaining conservative, we have a projected amount of $209,000 for fiscal year 2023. The next category that we have is the administrative fees. So we have an actual amount. We have a municipal infractions amount of $4,700. We don't anticipate receiving much more there. And we have a projected amount for the next fiscal year of $3,200. The next category we have is fines and forfeitures. So in this category, it consists of police reports, vehicle impounds, and parking citations. This figure is a little bit lower, and we attribute this to the COVID-19 and such. So we have an estimated actual amount of $38,000.
Can we scroll the image, please?
Oh, sorry about that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. And we had a budgeted amount of $46,000. So with that, we still maintain a conservative approach for the next fiscal year for $40,000. And again, that includes the vehicle impounds, parking citations, and police reports. The next major category is community safety programs, which includes the safe speeds for students, which is the speed camera revenue, automated red light enforcement, and then third-party collections is also a part of this major category. So this is a category that has outperformed the budgeted amount. Due to the uncertainty and the unreliability of the speed camera revenue, we continue to maintain a conservative approach. So for the current fiscal year, we have an estimated actual of $1,050,000, and we have a projected amount of $650,000 for speed camera. For the safe speed revenue that we received from prior years, we have an estimated actual of $2,000, and we are maintaining that same amount for the next fiscal year. So we have a projected amount of $2,000. For the current fiscal year, we don't anticipate receiving any automated red light enforcement, but that is something that we're looking at in the future for the next fiscal year. So we have an amount there for $7,500. And the last category here is third-party collections. We've received $23,135, but that is for the next fiscal year. We're not sure if we're going to continue to use those services. So we don't have a budgeted amount there, and we don't anticipate receiving any more revenue for third-party collections. Next category is reimbursements, rebates, and refunds. So we have a budgeted amount of $20,000. At this current moment, we have received $10,217. So our estimated actual is $15,000, and we are projecting the same amount in the next fiscal year. The disposal fee rebate, we've received 50%, but we do anticipate receiving the full $17,000, and we have a projected amount of $17,336 in the next fiscal year. Under grant revenues, We have state aid for police. We anticipate receiving 164,836, and we project to receive the same amount in the next fiscal year. So the next category is other revenue, and it includes cable TV franchise fees, investment interest income, election fee revenue, contributions from ACP, other primary income, recycled scrap metal revenue, and service revenue. So for this category, we have an estimated actual of 106,825. And for the next fiscal year, that we have a projected amount of 105,300. So not far off from our estimated actuals. As far as the budgeted amount, we have lowered our projections for this current fiscal year, and we maintain that amount for the next. The last category is the transfer in. We're still in the process of our budget where we're not exactly sure how much we will need to transfer in from the health and wellness funds or the OPEB funds. So as of now, that number is 0 for the FY 2023 projection. But for the estimated actuals, we do anticipate transferring in the budgeted amount of the 76,000 and the 37,000. So overall, our revenues are strong. We anticipate having a revenue amount larger than what we had budgeted, which is good. And for the next fiscal year, we have a projected amount of 8,416,761. Again, that number is subject to change as we continue to move through the budget process, but for the next fiscal year, we do see a modest increase in our projected revenue amount. And that concludes the revenue projection portion. The next portion of this presentation will be the constant yield. And I guess at this point,
Deputy Director Jones, can we have questions on the revenue section before we go on?
Yeah, sure.
So I'm going to jump in first this time and just make some comments that it's amazing to me that at the end of February, we've actually exceeded our anticipated revenue. And I appreciate the careful and conservative budgeting such that we are there, because I know that that's what's led to this, is that we were making sure that we were going to hit those numbers, and it's nice to hit them this early and know that we're in good shape. There was one item that that concerns me just a little bit, and I just want to make sure about that, and that's the safe speed for students. We have an income there of almost $900,000 at this time. And at some point, when we hit a fraction of our spending, then we have to start cutting a check to the state. And do you know what that number is? Or Mr. Listician, do you know that number?
I believe it's after expenditures, it would be 10% of the town's operating budget.
Yes.
So we're very close to that number, and we still have 5 months to go. Is that right?
You would subtract out all the expenditures for the program.
I understand. I don't need an answer this evening. It's just it's concerning me, and in particular, just a procedural issue. Do we have an expenditure item in the budget for writing those checks to the state?
We don't have a separate line item to draw from. It would be a contra account against this revenue.
Okay, but that would we don't need to do anything to the budget in order to make that happen.
Correct.
Okay.
That was. Go ahead. I'm sorry, sir.
That was my only concern, was whether we needed to do anything to the budget. You know, I'm disappointed that that people are speeding so much, but I just wanted to make sure we were procedurally okay for that.
Yes. The only thing that is possible depending on the numbers, and Mr. Jones, jump in and correct me if I'm wrong on this, is that depending on what the numbers are, and would take a look at these in May. We may have to adjust the budget to allow for the additional expenditure, because with each revenue coming in, there's an expenditure for that citation. And so as the expenditures increase proportionately, we may exceed our allocated authority to spend. And if we believe that in May, then we would have to adjust the budget to allow for that.
Okay. And I vaguely remember that we had to do that or got close to having to do that last year also. So
we were within about $20,000, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's all my questions on this, but I'm very pleased that that we're in good shape. This looks like Councilmember Smith is ready to jump in with a question. Councilmember Smith. We can't hear you, Councilmember Smith. Looks like you're unmuted. Still can't hear you. Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you now.
Sorry, that set of headphones decides it doesn't want to work sometimes. Deputy Director Jones, thanks for that presentation on the Safe Speed around schools program. I believe I heard you say, my dog is also concerned with this issue, it sounds like. I believe I heard you say that we are not assuming future revenues on that. My instinct is that that's because we don't want to get to a place where our budget is dependent on people doing things we don't want them to do. And just to make sure that's the case.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any additional council questions? Any questions from members of the public? Councilmember Smith, I'm assuming that your hand is just left up. If you have another question, please speak up. Okay, I think we are done with that section of the budget. So let's move on to the mayor's report. I'm going to try to be quick.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you. The constant yield. Thank you. Appreciate that. I had dragged my marker for where we were a little bit too far. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be providing an update on the constant yield tax rate. So each February, the town receives a constant year tax rate certificate, and this certificate details the potential revenue for the current year as well as the potential revenue for the following year. The calculation for this potential revenue also takes into account the value of new construction in town. This year, the constant yield tax rate certificate notified the town that the net assessable real property base had decreased slightly. The certificate suggests that in order to maintain our current revenue, the tax rate would need to increase from 0.6540 to 0.6552. And should the town not increase the tax rate, the revenue would decrease from $5,160,972 to $5,151,487, or just under $10,000. Over the last few years, the constant yield tax rate required to maintain revenue has been lower than the current rate. Again, that current rate is 0.654. And the tax rate required to maintain revenue has been lower because the assessable base has been growing. In 2019, we saw a decrease in the assessable base estimation, and the revenue calculation this year saw the assessable base significantly affected by new construction and homestead tax credits. On the chart for net assessable real property base, You can see the change each year. This year, you can see the slight decrease from the 789 million down to the 787 million. And in order to try to get to the bottom of this, staff has analyzed the different sectors in our assessable base. So the assessable base is becoming more diverse every year. This year it's divided as such. There's a larger commercial and single family residential portion, but also a significant amount of industrial and townhomes as well. The importance of a diverse accessible base is so that in case a particular sector is underperforming, it doesn't have quite the negative impact it would if our entire tax accessible base was consisted of the single sector. So this is the assessed values per year. So there has been a slight increase over the last 3 years in commercial and single family residential and townhomes. But notably this year, there was a decrease in the industrial sector. Staff is currently working with staff at the state level to try to determine why that is and figure out how we can address that. Are there any questions on the constant yield tax rate? Sorry, lost the words there.
Thank you, Director Chilton. Are there questions for Director Chilton on this presentation?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, please.
So essentially, if I'm hearing right, the difference between the two main numbers is less than $10,000.
The difference in potential revenue, if we were to maintain our tax rate, would be a decrease of less than $10,000. Yes.
Okay.
Obviously, we have increasing costs, so it's Gentry would be much more equipped to answer the effect on our budget. But yes, what you said is correct.
Okay.
And just to emphasize, Councilmember Lingua, the reduction in the assessable base of the town was from 780 odd million and went down by a few $1 million. So it was really a very small 789. Thank you. 79 to basically almost 788.
Yeah.
And
please go ahead.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may point out, because the Calvert track, Riverdale Park Station, is subject to tax incremental financing, commonly referred to as a TIF. The value of the Calvert track is not calculated in by the state for the town's constant yield notice, because a portion of those taxes simply flow through the town to then pay the debt service for a portion of the bridge. And so revenue net expense for the TIF flows back to the general fund. And so we have seen an increase in valuation there, and the Calvert track, in large measure due to the Pilot House apartment building and having a full year of taxes on that. I think last year we may have had a month or two. So we have seen a considerable increase in valuation from that track.
Thank you for that clarifying remark, Mr. Town Manager. Are there additional council questions? Additional public questions? Well, I'm looking forward to the outcome of the staff investigation as to what's happened to our accessible base under industrial. And so hope to hear from that soon. Thank you. And with that, we are really through the presentations, and I can jump to the mayor's report. Start out by noting that a very happy thing happened today, just this evening, which is that the sun set at 6:00 p.m. for the first time since November. So the days are getting longer, the sun is setting later, and this is a good sign. A few days ago, maybe it was just yesterday, I saw a draft agenda for the town's tree summit, which has been discussed for a little bit over a year, I think. And so looking forward to seeing that agenda developed and the event occurring. Members of the council, I sent an email yesterday. We're in the midst of the town manager's annual performance review. Those of you who saw the email, it is a good shape. Those of you who need a print copy, if you can let me know now, either verbally or by raising your hand, then I will put you on the list. I'm going to be producing print copies and hand delivering them to your door.
Mr. Mayor, I wasn't able to open the file you sent, so a print copy would be good.
Okay. Councilmember Foe, do you need a print copy?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Very good. Councilmember Lingua?
That would be nice.
Okay. Councilmember Sadiq?
I would like to see if I can open the file first.
Okay, well, please let me know by email. I hope to get to printing them out tomorrow. So please let me know as quickly as possible. Councilmember Mejia, I assume wants a printout copy. She's wanted one in the past. And Councilmember Mayers let me know yesterday that she wants a printout copy. So I will produce those and deliver them. And we need to have a closed meeting to discuss that report. Are council members available half an hour before next Monday's meeting to have that closed session to discuss the report before delivering it to the town manager? Councilmember Lingua, I know that you often
Yeah.
work later, so you can meet at 6:30.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Town Manager, if you could arrange for staff to schedule that and announce it, I would appreciate that.
Absolutely, sir.
Okay. That is everything for the town manager review. I can't have a mayor's report without discussing COVID a little bit. This is a short report. The case rate has dropped a lot from where it was not all that too long ago, more than 2 times just in the last 3 weeks. And 3 weeks ago was way down from a few weeks before that, perhaps a factor of 10. The county mask requirement inside of and inside spaces, inside commercial spaces, is ending today. I'm not super happy about that. I think it might be a little bit early, but I understand the data that's leaving them to do that. And here's the data that's sort of contrary to that. We've still had approximately 15 residents of the county die from COVID in the last week. That's identified so far. Sometimes the statistics are delayed a little bit. They don't have a cause of death at the time that same day. And another disappointing thing is that the CDC, Center for Disease Control and Prevention, is moving the goalposts a little bit, is how I'll describe it. So previously, they were recommending precautions based on the number of cases that was in an area per unit population. The new metrics, which were released over the weekend or yesterday, or perhaps today, are more of what is the chance that if you get sick, rather than how many of you are likely to get sick, it's if you get sick, will a hospital bed be available to care for you if you're that sick? And I'm hopeful that those metrics will change, but I'm afraid that they won't. And I guess that the sort of concluding remark of all of this is that definitely relax a little bit, enjoy the fact that our case rates are down, but please, if you possibly can make it work, keep your mask on in public places, avoid poorly ventilated, crowded public spaces, and just stay safe, because we want us all to make it through, many of us as can, to make it through the pandemic. That concludes my mayor's report for this week. So unless there are any questions or comments, we can move on to the town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be relatively brief tonight. Two main topics. One, on COVID. I am keeping the protocols that we've established for our town staff and our operations in place. I will share that we currently have one staff member who's in isolation with COVID. And so I think that the mayor's words are important to heed, because it's still impacting us. I wanted to share with the whole council, follow-up. Councilmember Smith had asked a question when we had the fund manager for the defined benefit plan attend a meeting about a report on whether or not we invest in any funds or firms regarding forced labor. I have the answer to that, and that is no. And then the second part of that was an environmental type score. And we are not hitting the benchmark. Higher numbers better. Benchmark is 19 and some change, and we're at 17. So I spoke with 3 members of the Board of Trustees for the defined benefit plan earlier today. And we are going to have PNC as the fund manager look into that and to look into options. And if there are options to raise the score without lowering the yield. And then we'll report back to the council when we hear back from PNC. Michelle, when I spoke with her earlier today, she seems to think that there are some options. I do have a 2-page report. We'll get that out to the council within the next day by email. The other question that came up in discussion with Michelle was whether or not the fund is involved in any investments in Russia. So I just wanted to report to the council that we do have a small amount of the fund that's invested in a firm headquartered in Russia. It's about an $11,000 portion of our $11 million retirement fund, and it's in a diamond company. And so I again spoke about that with the members of the Board of Trustees, and I'll be communicating back to Michelle if she can report to us on what options may be should the town decide to change direction there. And so as soon as we have answers on that, we'll report that back to the council. And that's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. I suspect we, after some of the announcements this week, it may be an even smaller fraction of our investment than this time.
Yes.
There's a lot of financial turmoil coming out of Russia right now.
There certainly is, sir.
Are there any questions for the Town Manager? Council or public? Okay, let's move on. We have council, committee, and board reports. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Town Manager, for taking out about half of my remarks tonight, so I don't have to talk about hoping we divest from Russian firms. I think that's a very important step that we take, and it would be great if we, as a municipality, could be a leader and something for to inspire some of our neighboring jurisdictions. I think that'd be great. I know I have friends personally who are came here to the United States as refugees from Ukraine due to the anti-Semitism and whatnot there when they were kids. And so, together as a friend group, we've been, watching this stuff with heavy hearts. And I see some folks calling for taking Russian products off the shelves. I don't know that that's a, I don't know if a Riverdale Park Russian vodka boycott would turn the fates of the Ukrainian people or not. So, but if folks are interested in that, about the most vodka is not made in Russia. The most common brand around here that would be made in Russia is Russian standard. So that one's pretty easy to determine whether or not it's made in Russia. I did ask my friends who are from Ukraine for recommendations on any Ukrainian vodka if people are looking for it. And what they recommended was Nemirov. It's called Nemirooff. I'm told the honey pepper Nemirov is particularly delicious. So there's your update on vodka for the evening. And then secondly, I just wanted to note that we've had a new restaurant open in Ward 1 in our town, in Taqueria Los Perez, which is at the corner of Madison and Route 1. I ate there just a couple nights ago. It is fantastic. I'm glad we can get some good Mexican food on this side of the river. So please make a point to check them out. It's delicious. And that will conclude my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Foe.
Good evening, everybody. I'll try my best to keep this very, very short. I have a lot of things on my plate. I have a lot of things on my mind, but I haven't gotten to talk to the town manager, haven't gotten to talk to the mayor as much as I'd like to. And I always like to bounce my ideas off them first before humiliating myself publicly. I hope everybody's doing well. Just emotional well-being check. I appreciate everyone being here this evening. I appreciate your effort going into this meeting. I know as we sit here at 9:10 that we wish we were beyond ward reports, but we're not yet. I just want to make sure that everybody is doing okay. And it's a standing offer. If you need to talk, if you want to talk, please reach out. We are always here. My contact information is readily available. And I want to be of assistance in this time. Secondly, just a reminder, it's the last day of Black History Month, but Black history is our history. It shouldn't be limited to a month. I hope that we are not attempting to do that as a country, even though it feels like in the state of Virginia, we might be trying to do that. Said that's why I'm really tremendously glad to be a resident in the state of Maryland at this time. It's been a pretty good Black History Month for me. We renamed the park. I got second place in our school's Black History Month door celebration. I really believe that the judges were offered money from the first place winner, because mine was significantly better. Giant picture of Adam Francis Plummer on the top. And I just want everyone to know that Councilman Smith really moved me. I was kind of proud of myself about the park and moving in that direction. And he said, it's the least we can do. And I heard from multiple constituents, including multiple constituents. And I also heard from my brother, who said, I really loved what that Councilmember Smith had to say about it just being the beginning. So I take that as a positive suggestion moving forward, that we continue to look at our history and what we can do to right those wrongs. And I'm excited about what lies ahead for us. So with that being said, I yield my time. I hope everybody's having a great evening.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Lingua.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Secor CDC is postponing their meeting. It was originally scheduled to be tomorrow evening, but due to a confluence of grant applications needing to be submitted both tomorrow and Thursday, they are moving the meeting to March 8th, starting at 5 p.m. And prior to that meeting, I'll have a more full report regarding the CCAR CDC at that time.
Does that conclude your report, Mr. Councilman?
Yes. Yes, it does.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Sadiq.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Councilmember Mayers.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. No reports at this time.
Thank you very much. Okay, that brings us, unless I've skipped over something again, to public comments. Are there any public comments this evening? Ms. Katz.
Yes, Mayor. I would just like to confirm that the meeting scheduled for March 7th with the council will still include a meeting with the representative from the state spraying program for mosquitoes.
Mr. Town Manager.
Director Barnes.
We will have a representative at our meeting on March the 7th. It'll be a different representative than visited with us last year. So I expect to have more information, and they'll be ready for lots of questions.
Great. Thank you so much.
Certainly.
Any additional public comments? Okay, let's move on to the meat of the meeting, the work session discussion items. First item, fence permit request, 4508 Oliver Street, 6-foot wood fence. This is Ward 1.
Good evening, Mayor Thompson and members of the council. We recently received a fence permit request from the Carlos Lambestia Martinez with Fences and Landscaping R Us for the installation of a 6-foot wooden fence at 4508 Oliver Street. The applicant has obtained a Prince George's County permit for the project. The project includes the installation of approximately 270 feet of horizontal pressure treated wood fencing and 2 gates in the backyard area. It appears that this will be replacing a chain link fence. So a chain link fence will be removed and a wood fence will be installed. The resident is here to speak about her fence if there are any questions that the mayor and council may have.
Thank you, Director Barnes. Are there questions for the applicant, comments about the application, anything to discuss? It's awfully quiet. Councilmember Smith, would you like this to be put on the consent agenda or full discussion agenda?
Barring any objections, I'm okay with it being on the consent agenda. I haven't spoken with this resident, but I did look up the sort of view on the map and drive by there, and it seems okay to me. So I support having it on the consent agenda.
Okay, please let me know or staff know by Friday morning if you have a change of heart and want it to be put on the regular agenda. Councilmember Lingua.
Has there been any discussion with the neighbors that are next to the applicant?
I can answer that. I'm the resident. Yes, I have had conversations with my neighbors on either side. and behind me, directly behind me as well. And no one has raised any concerns about it. And actually, we're all glad for it. My next door neighbor is the former mayor, Vern Archer. So he gets a full privacy fence out of the deal because there's a privacy fence on the other side. So I think everyone's in favor.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay, looks like it will be on the consent agenda barring something unusual happening. So thank you for coming. Thank you for sitting through all of the presentations and reports earlier. And you shouldn't need to come next week unless you hear from Councilmember Smith.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Next item on the agenda is a variance request for 4514 Riverdale Road, also in Ward 1.
Good evening again, Mayor Thompson and members of the council. Staff recently received notification from the Prince George's County Board of Zoning Appeals that Levi Shank and Laura Shank are seeking to obtain a building permit to reconstruct a covered front porch and right side porch and open deck with steps. In order to do that, 2 variances are needed. The first variance is of 13 feet front yard depth, and the second is 22% net lot coverage. The front yard depth requested is 12 feet and the net lot coverage requested is 52%. Included in the materials that came from the Board of Zoning Appeals are pictures of the lot, and I believe Mrs. Shank is here to talk about her projects.
Yes, hi, thanks for having me tonight. I apologize, my husband does know a little bit more than I do about this project, but he can't be with us tonight. He's out of town, so I'm gonna do my best, so please be patient with me. Before, when we just purchased this house back in September, we moved here from Michigan and we absolutely love the neighborhood. However, the person who had the house before, who renovated it, tore out the original porch that had been there I believe since the house was built. So we are just currently don't have a porch. We've just got these temporary wooden steps leading up to our front door and our side door. So we're just looking to rebuild the porch as it was. I believe there was a screened in porch before we moved in, but we're not looking to do that. We're just looking to do the covered porch around the front side, or the front of the house, the left side of the house, and then a little bit on the back side of the house.
Thank you, Ms. Shanks. Are there questions or comments from Ms. Shanks on this particular item?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, please speak.
Yep, this variance request comes from my ward. I have spoken with the homeowners and observed the project from the curb there. As Ms. Shanks said, this is simply a request to replace a deck or a porch as in the place as it had been for literally 100 years. This is a 1921 construction. So this porch was in this place up until last year for an entire century. And the resident is just requesting to restore that as such. So I'm definitely supportive of the request and putting it on the consent agenda, and hope other council members will be as well.
Okay, thank you. I looked at a bunch of Google Street View photos. There are half a dozen, I would guess, of that, and also some historical aerial photos on the PG Atlas website. And I could see that I didn't actually realize the extent of what was taken out. I thought it was smaller than that. So I'm sorry to hear that Ms. Shanks, that much was taken out. It looks like it was actually a very nice looking porch. before it disappeared.
It was. We were very sad about it. But I mean, yeah, the house is still beautiful. It's just lacking that porch.
I understand. So the only concern I have is that even though it was covered for 100 years, the 22% is quite a good number and large over the lot coverage. And I don't know that I want to make this suggest that this should be a condition of the approval, but I would like you as a new resident who came here after some of the more recent flooding near your house, for you to consider changes that you might make in the future that would reduce that lot coverage, including such things as you have a fairly large driveway. If you could make that a permeable surface, if you could install a rain garden perhaps behind the house, then both of those things would help to keep stormwater on the property and out of other people's basements. So just wanted to bring that up as an issue. But I understand that as you said, it was built long before much of the other impermeable surfaces in town that can also contributed to that flood. So I don't want to make it too strong, but I encourage everyone to improve the stormwater management on their own lots. So wanted to encourage you while you're here.
Thank you.
Councilmember Foe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was originally alarmed by the 52% lot coverage as well. But I mean, it's a problem that they moved into it. Even without the porch, they're at 44% already. And I posted in the discussion, Ms. Shanks, a link to our Prince George's County rain check rebate. The county offers up to, I think, $6,000 per property is my last discussion with Councilmember Glaros for projects like permeable driveway or a rain garden. I wish I had known that when I built my rain garden. And also for rain barrels. So I think that is worth looking into it. I do love the appearance of your house and I can't wait to see what this porch looks like. But I would look into the rain check rebate to see if there's any projects that you could get underway to assist with stormwater management. Just reiterating a little bit what the mayor has to say. And I'll yield.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman. Councilmember Lingua.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Shanks, I would echo what you just heard from the mayor and Councilmember Foe. We're in a very different day and age, and things like this, when we're going over lot coverage, anyone needs to be able to address where that stormwater is going to run off to. So I would, as my colleagues are kindly suggesting, I would strongly suggest that you do look into these programs and that you do avail yourselves of them, because this is an effort that all of us here really need to be able to pitch in and do together if we're going to be able to manage what's coming in the future when it comes to the type and intensity of storms that we are more than likely to experience.
Sure. Thank you so much for the advice. And I'm not sure if this is worth much, but from what I understand, we're actually not covering any additional property. I think there was some confusion. I think the county thought that our backyard was not paved, but it's where the porch is going. I think there was just some confusion about the lot coverage. So I'm not actually sure if that number is accurate, but yes, but absolutely. I think all of the water, I'm definitely going to look in that rebate. I really appreciate your suggestions. So this is great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Foe, I presume your hand is left up, not that you have a new question, but if you do, please speak. Thank you. Are there any public comments? Ms. Katz?
Yes, I'm not an adjacent neighbor, but I am on the same street as this home, and I just would like to speak in support of replacing that porch, which already has coverage over it from the house. That part of the structure already exists, but I really do appreciate the council members' mention and advice about all of the wonderful stormwater management type things that can be done around the house to enhance it even more. This lot is awfully small to begin with, and I'm sure as the town grew, I'm sure this lot was probably bigger at one point. I don't know for a fact, but I'm sure that it was. It's a large house, and it's the smallest lot on the street, I think, compared to the house size. But I look forward to having that original porch architecture put back. It really is going to add to the beauty of our street. So I appreciate the new owners, Laura and Levi and Mo, taking care of that. That's out of their pocket. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you. So the one issue, we actually can't put this on the consent agenda. Variance requires a direct vote of the council, so we'll go on the regular agenda. But I think that we're pretty much, it sounds pretty much there's support for maintaining this. So Ms. Shanks, if you could try to be at next week's meeting just in case something happens, that'd be nice. But I think you're pretty safe if you have other plans already.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much for your time.
Of course. Thank you. And again, as with the previous person, thank you for being patient as we spoke to the other people earlier this evening. Okay, let's move on to item 3, fiscal year 2022 revenue update.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council again. Tonight's revenue report is similar to the previous revenue reports that we have presented, and in an effort not to be redundant with some of the items that I covered in the previous presentation, I'll keep it fairly high level and just cover the major categories. So for local taxes, in the current fiscal year, revenue is at $6,209,052, which is fairly in line with where we have been in the previous fiscal year. We were at $6,276,000. The years preceding that, $5,888,000 and $5,215,000. Next major category is the licenses and permits. Licenses and permits totaled this fiscal year, 188,873. Previous year, 191. Year before, 185,000. And there was a large jump in 2019 at 254. So we're right in line with where we've been in the previous 2 fiscal years. And again, revenues are strong overall. The next category is the administrative fees, which includes the municipal infractions, total 4,700, up a bit from the previous year, 800. Year before that, 3,400. The year before that, 2,055. The next major category is fines and forfeitures, which consists of the police reports, vehicle impounds, and parking citations. The numbers have continued to decrease, and we do attribute this to COVID. 2019, we were at 39,000. 2020 jumped up to 46,000. In the previous fiscal year, we dropped down to 31,000, and in the current fiscal year, we're at 23,759. So that's where we are, a bit lower in that category. The next category is actually up. That is the community safety programs, which includes the speed camera revenue. So for the current fiscal year, 897,442, up considerably from the previous fiscal year of 554,000, and that of the one before, 330. And then 2019, we totaled 367,000 for that particular category. So revenue is strong for speed cameras, and that's giving us a total for the categories that we have listed here, $7,323,827. So again, as I mentioned in my previous presentation about revenue, we are fairly strong overall. If we look at the total of revenue budget amount, we are at 98% of what is budgeted. So, and as the mayor had mentioned earlier, it's just the end of February. So, we are strong in our revenue. We've been conservative in our budget, conservative in our projections, and it's put us in a good place financially for our revenue. So yes, that concludes the revenue, and I will open it up to any questions.
Thank you, Deputy Director Jones. Further questions for Deputy Director Jones about the report? Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on to work session discussion item 4, committee to design town's common seal.
Sorry about that, Mr. Mayor.
No problem.
So as it's outlined in the memo, the recommendation is that that the attached resolution be adopted by the mayor and council. In that draft, it's to form a committee that would work with town hired vendors, maybe one vendor, maybe multiple vendors, to conduct the community outreach, to synthesize information, and to then have some markups created and some recommendations made back to the council, as well as to abide by any schedule or benchmarks established by the council throughout the time of the committee's work. And to then the goal being for the mayor and council then to adopt a new design or redesign. The committee, as staff envisioned it in the draft, would be comprised of 2 members of the council and 3 members of the community. And with that, we're available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Members of the council, any comments or questions? Okay, I'll jump in and say that that this looks like a reasonable direction, and I think it's a good idea to bring in some professional support for this. Just speaking procedurally, you talk about the council establishing deadlines. Do you assume that that would happen at the same time as the appointments to the committee?
I would not envision that, sir. I think the appointments can be made, and then as the committee begins their work, I would envision they would have a better understanding of how long some things would take. And for example, we may have to go through a process depending on the amount involved to select a vendor. We may rely on existing relationships with the vendor. So that would weigh on that. But I do think that it would be important for the council to establish shortly after the committee's formed what the expectations of the committee are in terms of benchmarks and that sort of thing. But it may be more of an interactive discussion before the council establishes those.
Okay, that sounds like a good idea. I appreciate your thoughts on that. Any additional council questions? Any public questions or comments? Okay, and just to be clear, a possible outcome of all of this is that the committee recommends that the seal be untouched. That's a possibility. We'll have to see what they recommend. And members of the council, if you have an interest in being on this committee, please reach out to me and let me know that you're interested so I can think about who to recommend to be the council representatives. If there's no more discussion, let's move on to work session discussion item 5, licensing agreement with International Code Council.
Director Chung.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. The town has been working towards the adoption of a Riverdale Park Property Maintenance Code, which would be derived from the 2018 International Property Maintenance Code and include local amendments. Currently, the town adopts by reference the county's amended version of the International Property Maintenance Code as it applies to residential properties. The Riverdale Park Property Maintenance Code, in contrast, would apply to both residential and commercial properties in town. In order to adopt the new Riverdale Park Property Maintenance Code, the town must enter into an agreement with the International Code Council. The town staff and town attorney have reviewed the agreement provided by the International Code Council. And believe the town should enter into the agreement that they propose. After the agreement is signed, the International Code Council will send a Microsoft Word version of the 2018 International Property Maintenance Code to the town staff, and we can begin constructing the Riverdale Park Property Maintenance Code. The next step after the amendments have been added to the Riverdale Park Property Maintenance Code would be to replace the current town code, Chapter 67, housing standards, with the new Riverdale Park Property Maintenance Code. Are there any questions on the agreement with the International Code Council?
Council members, are there questions? Members of the public? Do we have a guess as to what the price tag on this is going to be, just out of curiosity?
I believe so. Let me see here. It's a $1,800 one-time payment for the posting our Riverdale Park Property Maintenance Code on the web and 10 physical copies.
That's not bad at all. That's not too much money. Okay. One other question, that the replacement of Chapter 67, a big advantage to going in this direction is that we would actually be regulating commercial properties, maintenance of commercial properties. And title of Chapter 67 is housing standards. So would that title be upgraded as part of the revision of the chapter?
Yes, it would. Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Okay. Any additional comments? Questions? Public or council? Okay, let's move on. Thank you. Item 6, American Rescue Plan Update, ARPA. The ARPA update.
Yes, good evening again. The Staff has been working diligently on the ARPA, the Economic Recovery Strategy Plan. And as a reminder, in October, the town accepted the first half of the allotted ARPA funds amounting to approximately $3.2 million. The town has also amended the budget to account for spending $1.2 million of this $3.2 million this fiscal year to help town residents. And the town residents, through the means of a survey, and the mayor and council have provided focus areas for providing assistance with these funds. Staff are proposing the establishment of 3 new programs and 2 agreements to address 3 of the focus areas, those being business recovery, rental and housing assistance, and food security. The first program staff is recommending is a food assistance grant focused on nonprofits and faith-based organizations with existing programs. Nonprofits with existing food assistance programs which assist Riverdale Park residents will be eligible to apply for funds to continue providing food to town residents. The second program is a nonprofit grant program, which will be open to all nonprofit and faith-based organizations who require support for eligible activities under the ARPA final rule and which serve town residents. There will be more information on exactly which activities are eligible on the application when it is produced. The third program is an emergency housing assistance program, which will provide rent, mortgage, and utility assistance to town residents in need. To assist with the facilitation of this program, staff is recommending entering into an agreement with Sewing Empowerment and Economic Development, Inc., also known as SEED. SEED is a HUD certified counseling agency, which has partnered with Prince George's County to administer and evaluate applications for their emergency rental assistance program. SEED's experience with evaluating rental assistance applications and abiding by the ARPA final rule criterion would allow the town to assist its residents more quickly. Staff is also suggesting entering into an agreement with the Small Business Development Center to assist with the Small Business Assistance Grant Program, which was recently reestablished in December last year. The Small Business Development Center will evaluate, assess, and consult with business owners to help them thrive in the post-COVID-19 environment. In summary, these actions will help address 3 of the town's focus areas: business recovery, rental and housing assistance, and food security. Are there any questions on the ARPA programs or agreements?
Thank you, Director Shelton. Council members, are there questions? Members of the public, are there questions? I think I might be the only person who had coffee at 5 o'clock this afternoon. So I will jump in with a few comments and questions. First of all, I would say about SEED that I have worked with them since very early April 2020 as part of the Greater Riverdale Cares organization, and I think they are extremely qualified and well motivated, and I appreciate that we're looking to partner with them on this. That's a great partnership. Fantastic. I was reading through the details of these plans that are further down in the packet material, and I just want to be sure that a few of the ideas that I've spoken about in the past are in fact covered under here. So one of the ideas that I've discussed is that we would like our business community to come out at the end of these programs sort of hardened against not just this pandemic, but future pandemics. So upgrades of HVAC or the ability to clean the air in their businesses in some way, so that it's less likely that anyone in the business will actually transmit COVID while they are there. And it wasn't, I was unable, I didn't spend as much time as I should have because I was working on other items this weekend. But it wasn't clear to me that that was a pathway just from some of the wording in the business business grant program. So is that a possibility through the program for them to apply for grants for that?
Yes, yes. So that'll be part of the SBDC's consulting with business owners. They will be consulting them not only on the proper use of how to manage their accounting, but also how to address pandemics and I guess other future hurdles that they might run into, and how to respond to those type of things. So that is
yes.
Part of their consulting.
Okay, great. I just saw there was a line in there that seemed to be focusing on rental and utility assistance, and I wanted to make sure that it was broader than that. That was just an example. Yes, Mr. Town Manager.
Yes, I would add that we have existing programs such as the Business Growth Grant Program, which deals with capital type projects. And we had amended it. It still only has a $5,000 cap currently. We had amended it to, in terms of the match, I think it's down to a 1-to-1 match. And further discussions that we're going to have are going to bring us back to you to further amend that program, which can also be funded either locally or through ARPA, that would deal with the capital improvements, such as the air conditioning, the windows. We've had lengthy discussions about airflow.
Mm-hmm.
And how we can assist businesses in having better airflow to better position them against future pandemics.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for that clarification. I also had a question about maybe the examples, the next 3 or 4 pages. Are those the existing programs and not exactly what we have anticipated? No, these are.
Sorry, these are resolutions for the proposed programs, the food assistance through nonprofit grant program, the nonprofit grant program, and the emergency housing or rental assistance, mortgage assistance programs.
Okay. Okay, well, I will, I'll review those a little bit more carefully over the next week and see if I have questions when we come back. And of course, I'll let you know if I find anything in the meantime. So those are my comments. One last chance for council members or members of the public to speak. Any questions or comments? Okay. Next item on the agenda is minutes. As always, please review them carefully. Make sure that what you think you said is going to be recorded for history, because once we approve them, then they are the history and they are going to reflect what people thought you said. Any items of new business? Any items of unfinished business? I think we have come to the end of our agenda. Thank you all for a productive evening's discussion. And I look forward to seeing as many of you as possible next week. Have a good week and please take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.